in. Coming to you from Atlanta, Stephen Satterfield, chef owner of Miller Union. Stephen, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, for sure. No problem.
All right, so I want to start with a story about you and I, and we've told this story before when we had Anna Muley and Fabrizio Facchini on the show, talking about the Slow Food Zero Waste Family Meal. I think that was the title. It was a long title.
That's exactly
you were headed out here in Denver for Slow Food Nations, and we were cooking for Massimo Botaro. Amazing honor, I know, for all of us to be able to connect with him and get some of his insights. And then we cooked in a monsoon. It was unbelievable. I've never seen anything like that in 14 years in Denver, and we're cooking al fresco outside. I remember servers just absolutely drenched. Somehow a couple hundred people stuck around with us, and we just kept going. And it feels very much like this moment. We just figured it out. We just kept going. We just fed people. So I want to start with that. I'm sure that's a fond or polarizing memory for you as well. But let's talk about that. And let's talk about slow food, your role in that a little bit.
Sure. Well, first off, Slow Food Atlanta, our chapter, I'm the vice president, and I've been involved for almost a decade now.
Yeah.
Definitely a cause that's near and dear to my heart, and a lot of the values of slow food internationally really resonate with the restaurant, Miller Union, and a lot of how we think about food and our philosophy. When Slow Food Nations started happening in Denver, I guess it was this year would have been the fourth year, but it's not happening this year due to unforeseen circumstances, as we all know. But they approached me about being involved because I've been so involved in slow food for many years, and I was telling them that a lot of times you do these food and wine festivals around the country, and at the end you just see all this food go in the garbage, and it's something that really has bothered me for a long time. And I thought, what if this would be the perfect place to try this? What if we track all the potential wasted food all weekend and then reinvent it into a new meal with a bunch of chefs that are willing to jump on board? And so I proposed this to the organizers of Slow Food Nations over 3 years ago. And they loved the idea. And so we just kind of winged it the first year. And then each year it's gotten bigger and better. The one with all the rain was definitely something that we didn't expect. And it doesn't rain. I think it rains like 10 days out of the year in Denver. And this was like the biggest rain we've had in forever. But we made it work. And seeing the creativity and the inventiveness that goes into all this thinking on the fly and just taking random ingredients and transforming them into a new dish, it's really, really remarkable to watch our fellow colleagues from all different parts of the country and different walks of life create new dishes. And we filled up the tables with so much food, and it was able to be enjoyed at a very low ticket price because it's stuff that would have ended up in the compost bin or the garbage pail. And so it's one of the most rewarding dinners I've done in a long time, and happy to be a part of it the past 3 years. And it's the kind of idea that, you could take this to your hometown festival and propose it on your own. It doesn't have to be proprietary to Slow Food. I encourage anyone and everyone at these festivals, or any other kind of event where you see an opportunity to repurpose the food and serve it to people that will enjoy it. It's so much better than letting it go to waste.
It was one of the favorite events, dinners that I've ever done, because I had to think very differently. A lot of times I'm thinking about the sourcing of it, but then it is wasteful. We're super wasteful when we do, 1,000 pieces for an event. I'm guilty of it. I'm sure you've been guilty of it too. Like, it's such a challenge. And so it was really rewarding to be on the other side. Everybody else had potentially not done the math as correctly, or was underattended, or whatever the means were. And we had to figure it out. And it was quite an undertaking. Chefs like Eric Lee, who was a kitten herder extraordinaire for us. So I was really impressed with that event, because we, the last line of defense, it very much felt like that, which was really cool. So I wanted to start with that. Now I want to backtrack a little bit. I want to hear a little bit and share about You, Miller Union, Atlanta, kind of what it means for you being a part of that community there. Give everyone the nickel tour for those who don't know kind of your background and story.
Sure. So we're in our 11th year of operation. Um, we feel very lucky to have become really a staple in the city. Um, Up until the recent pandemic, we were seeing our numbers grow every year, and our reputation goes beyond Atlanta. We often have a lot of conventions here in Atlanta, so we find that we are hosting people from out of town, and that we are often seeing we're stowing suitcases in our office, and giving people how long it takes to get to the airport so they can stay at the table a little longer, that kind of thing. So we see a lot of local and travelers, and our whole philosophy is just working with as many local and regional farms as we can, and really trying to stay true to that notion of farm to table in the real sense of the word, where we're really interpreting what is coming in that week. And much like the zero waste dinner, we're always just trying to adjust to what we're seeing on our availability list, and change the menu accordingly. So it's a great exercise for the team in the kitchen. We really keep them on their toes, and it helps them to be more creative cooks. And the servers enjoy, talking about. They're very proud of our sourcing, and they like to talk about it on the floor. We have a wonderful team. Some of our teammates have been here for the entire time we've been open, or at
For
least
11 years.
we have a couple that have been here for 10.5 years. We have several that have been here for 9. And some of our newbies are 3 and 4 years. So we feel like it's a great culture here that we've created.
They're still F and G at 3 years. They're still newbies. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
I like that a lot. What do you attribute that to be able to have such a cohesive team for so long, which everybody knows is an unbelievable challenge. I mean, the numbers right before pandemic were the average tenure of a restaurant employee was 56 days.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
Well, we certainly have
it's
those
really
too. There's always the revolving door, but it's a small window. I think the thing that makes a difference for our employees is that my business partner Neil and I both really work side by side with everybody. We're here every day, and we work in the restaurant, and we take our job seriously, and we don't just own the restaurant, we work in it. And it's a big part of our philosophy. We're willing to do whatever it takes. If it's bussing a table or mopping the floor, we're not above doing it. And there's been many times where I've washed dishes, even in the past year, where somebody didn't show up. So it's just sort of that owner mentality of doing anything it takes to keep everything moving. They see how hard we work, and they understand that we care deeply about this place. And I think, hanging out with them and talking to them about our passion, I think it really rubs off. And this last 6-8 weeks that we've been going through, the people that we've been able to keep on our team, we've bonded even more deeply with them over just the strange scenario that we're in right now. And it's been really rewarding to get to know them even more closely. And we've all been struggling emotionally, and having good days and bad days, and we've really helped each other lift each other up.
Well, you said philosophy, and you have really it's an ethos, right? There's such a fundamental way that you approach everything that you do within the restaurant. So it's clear that people have kind of that North Star to keep them aspiring to. And I think that's a really important thing. We get so chummed up in the minutia of what we do and how we do it, but why we do it and who we serve is always the most important. You said you had 25 employees that have still been active through this whole time. So let's talk about them. They're unsung hospitality heroes is what we call them. They are really the lifeblood of the industry and clearly of your restaurant. What does it mean to be able to keep them going at this time, and how have you actually been able to accomplish that?
Well, we have been pretty lucky in several ways, but when we decided we were closing, which was March 15th, it was pretty gut-wrenching conversation to have with the whole team, and every restaurant and chef owner that I know had to go through this. It was a a terrible feeling to shut your doors, but we felt like it was the right thing to do. We did it a few days before it was mandated. We promised to take care of our team for the rest of that week. And beyond that, we weren't sure what was going to happen. We assumed we were going to have to furlough pretty much everyone, except for maybe try to hold on to our salaried employees and do some fix-up projects around the building or whatever. That later on that week, we got an interesting proposition from Emory University Healthcare, and they were looking for restaurants to help feed their healthcare heroes, is what they called them. And so they developed this program called Healthcare Heroes. It was funded by Steve Koonin of Atlanta Hawks, which is our basketball team here, and also State Farm. And so they injected some money into the program. We did it in conjunction with a couple of other restaurants here in Atlanta. And we pivoted to packing up 400 meals a day, 5 days a week.
Wow.
So the way we packaged it was we wanted to do it so it was a meal for two. So as these healthcare workers are getting off their 12-hour shift, they were handed a bag from Miller Union or from one of the other restaurants. And it was basically like a couple's meal. So, they could take it home and have it with their spouse or roommate or friend or whatever, or eat half and save the other half for leftovers. And so we felt like that was a great way to contribute. And it was a contract. I mean, we were able to cover all of our costs, pay our rent and our utilities and cover the labor. And we did it at a more like a 50 to 60% food cost just to keep the lights on. But it was a wonderful experience. We just had our last drop on Saturday. So we did it for 6 weeks, and it really was something amazing to focus on. It gave us all a sense of purpose. We took it very seriously in terms of the safety and security of our employees. So we've all been, practicing social distancing, wearing masks and gloves and everything while we're working. Lots of hand washing, no face touching, all that stuff. But it's been a really incredible experience to have that as a bonding experience for us and to be able to do something meaningful for the community.
Did you find that cooking with your team during this time had some level of meaning that maybe you'd never seen before because it's never been in this context before? Like you're cooking.
Yeah, definitely. I think the volume was so great, number one, and we're just one meal. So we had to really change how we think about cooking and do stuff in much bigger bulk than we're used to. And I'll be honest, I spent more time running logistics and less time in the kitchen, just to make sure that everything was moving, that we're thinking ahead 2 or 3 days on our ordering. We made a commitment to order from as many local farms as we could, just like we normally do. But the quantities that we had to get were so much greater. It was a lot more logistics to figure out who had what and how we could supplement, with different farms that were growing maybe the same thing so we could get the right amount of bulk. And also half of our team are servers and they're not used to food preparation. So a lot of what I was doing was giving the front of the house guidance on portioning and packing the food. So our chef team cooking in bulk, chilling it down, and then handing it over to the front of the house team where I would oversee the portioning and packing with them because it's something very unfamiliar to them. So they really learned a lot too about food service and doing kind of catering in bulk. And it was a growing experience for all of us. Now, it's not how we would normally operate, and we're thankful for the work, but we're really excited about the opportunity to actually make the type of food that we make again, because this has been more of a comfort food project with really beautiful seasonal spring produce and all that. But, we were making grass-fed ground beef meatloaf, or like turkey meatballs or, things that were like easy to make in bulk and delicious, but not really Miller Union style of food. So it was a fun project for sure. We're ready.
There's a lot of bonding going on there for sure. I'm very interested when you said for two. Right away, my head went to how important sustainability is to you, and I thought about that right away because now you're potentially cutting in half the amount of to-go boxes that you might do if you were doing one person's meal individually.
True.
Was that a part of the thought process? And then maybe now having gone through that, knowing how important that is to you, knowing that the future of the industry holds only more to-go food, and the packaging is going to be a big part of the conversation. Maybe you just wanted like quick, high level from you, your thought
Sure.
process.
We've thought a lot about packaging, and we've purchased more takeout packaging than we've ever purchased before. For us, it's important that we buy everything that's compostable. So we're using only the craft paper brown boxes and the compostable PLA cups with the lids. But some things we had to kind of make a few exceptions for, and for travel and safety of the food. And those exceptions are the pint and quart deli containers with the snap-on lids. Yeah. But the good thing about those is that they can be reused and washed in the dishwasher and reused repeatedly. So we encourage the recipients of these meals to save those packaging and reuse them. But otherwise, everything else is compostable.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting thing, is that we're all restaurants have been doing a lot more takeout than we've ever done before. And rolling into reopening, we probably will keep that as part of our model moving forward, because any sale is a good sale at this point. Where in the past, where we may have been busy and somebody called to get to go, oh, we don't really do to go. This isn't a to go restaurant. Well, we are certainly a to go restaurant now, and we're happy to pack up food for anybody if they don't want to eat, if they don't feel comfortable eating in the dining room.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot to speak on. We'll do that another time, but to speak on with the business model and the challenge of making your nut within your four walls with all of the margin game that the restaurant is. So, who are the other four restaurants, or did you say four other restaurants that are involved in this program?
There were several restaurants involved with Emory Healthcare. For the Healthcare Heroes project, it started with Forza Storico, which is a restaurant down the street from us. And my friend Mike Patrick is the owner. And he's the one that actually called me and said, hey, this opportunity has come our way, and we can't do the full bulk of it. We would like to share it with another restaurant. And you seem like it would be the perfect fit for you guys. So we were really thankful for Mike's call. And then later they added another restaurant also in our neighborhood. And that it's actually an Italian pizzeria. So they were doing that at a lower price point, but offering pizzas and pastas and things for the healthcare workers as well. So that was sort of an additional tier that came on later.
So you mentioned reopening, and what an important process that is. What a challenging process. What a polarizing at times process that is. I know Georgia was one of the first states to kind of make the proclamation from the governor. There was a lot of joy and pushback. It's such a personal decision. You were on the slow down. We need to think about this more holistically. We need to have more understanding of the protocols and processes. Where are you at currently when it comes to reopening?
Sure. Well, just going back first to when our governor announced that restaurants would be allowed to reopen. He made that
about 3 weeks ago, right?
It was on April 27th. So it was a Monday. And what basically gave a 7-day notice for restaurants to reopen, but then said that the guidelines would be released later that week. So it wasn't until Thursday evening that they released the guidelines, which were pretty restrictive and for good reason. Yeah. The problem with that was it felt a little bit like a disregard for what we do and how long it would take for us to be prepared. I think, you have to take the safety and health of your guests and your team pretty seriously. And to rush into something like that, it really takes some time to think about all the measures you need to take with social distancing between tables and your entrance and exit plans, your number of guests allowed per square feet in the restaurant. And our restaurant's divided into several rooms. So that makes it even a little more restrictive for us, because each room has to be looked at separately. Then you have, how many times you have to sanitize surfaces throughout the day, throughout the service. If everyone's wearing masks or not, if everyone's wearing gloves or not. There's a lot of decisions to be made. And also, a lot of the things that they're saying is that people are going to feel more comfortable eating outside. Well, we only have a limited outdoor area. So we just felt like, okay, let's not rush into this. I mean, it's great in some ways that restaurants are allowed to reopen, but we wanted to make sure that we saw cases going down, number of deaths going down, number of hospitalizations going down, as well as have time to think through the plan and how we want to reopen. And it really is taking us weeks to figure everything out. And so we're in no rush. We've been thinking about this since April 27th, and our target date has been June 1st for a while. That's 2 weeks from today. So we're still feeling comfortable with that date, and it's giving us enough time to work all of our plans out, to reorder food, to test menu items. And I mean, the funny thing about, in the South, I know June 1st it's still spring, but in the South it's really summer. So we missed, all of spring we weren't really open. And so in the South, I feel like summer is Memorial Day to Labor Day. And technically it's June 21st to, September 23rd or whatever, but that's kind of what it feels like in the South. In fact, I think summer kind of goes till early October for us with the heat. But so, just lots of decisions to make, and we want to make sure that we have really thoroughly trained everyone and that we have done all the protocols that we need to do. We've even done some things like installed air purification in our HVAC that is proven to combat virus and bacteria. We're adding some seating outside in front of the restaurant. We have a common area that it's a mixed use building, and our neighbors are completely cool with it. We're actually spending a little bit of money to beautify the front and add some tables and chairs out there, so we have more outdoor options, which allows everybody to spread out a little more, and we can still do some decent numbers. So, we want to make sure everyone's comfortable, and it's a balancing act.
Yeah, and you mentioned the timeline. To just give everyone some context, if you open a restaurant and you know the program inside and out, it still takes you 2 weeks of training, of testing. You're doing 3, 4, 5 soft openings, friends and family, media night. It's a long timeline when you know the program. This is a completely different playbook than restaurants have dealt with, for sure. We're very good at the sanitation game. We understand that. However, there's a completely different layer. So just adding on to what you've normally done doesn't feel like it's good enough. You're going to have to go back to the core fundamentals and build up your program from scratch with the knowledge and techniques that you already have. So I want to give people some context and understanding to that. Turning around and opening up that quickly and just sanitizing a little bit more and wearing a face mask is not going to work. And so I want people to kind of understand that.
I think guests are going to be a lot more aware of their environment now than they have in the past, and where you didn't have to really think about being in a crowded restaurant. I think if a restaurant is crowded now, people aren't going to feel comfortable. So we really have to maintain, and it's kind of tricky to sort of control strangers that you don't know in your space. So you really have to set up a lot of strict guidelines and really adhere to them. So it requires a lot of training and lots of consideration.
Yeah. Thoughtful throughout this process and diligence is going to be very important. It's so fascinating because what you just said, a busy restaurant, a crowded restaurant is going to be a negative, where usually if you're the crowded restaurant, people go, wow, that must be the hip, cool, happening spot to be. We've flipped the script completely. So very, very strange there.
I'll say something. We were just talking about, we were going through some cabinets in the dining room. We have some platters and things that we would use for when people do like a family style meal at the table.
Sure.
And we were like, well, we aren't going to be using these anymore because it's not cool to share utensils and share plates, and everyone's going to be ordering their own meal. And we were joking about how sharing is no longer caring.
Yeah. It took a while to get to the social aspect of sharing, because definitely people were like, here's my meat and free. Like it was very much this is my plate, and small plates and tapas style mentality and things has been something that a lot of chef-driven restaurants have gone towards in the last years to allow people opportunities to try more things. And now you kind of have to reset the momentum that was created from that.
Yeah.
It's just a challenge. It's for sure a challenge. So one last thing I wanted to touch on, James Beard nominations came out, and it's amazing to see so many of our contemporaries and friends be nominated that way. I've also just seen people be like, is it tone deaf to be making nominations for awards right now when people are just trying to survive? What does that look like and mean? I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it, having won a James Beard Award and kind of being somebody who's a voice with their movement as well as slow food.
Got it. First of all, just double checking the audio. Is it okay?
Yeah, I haven't gotten a text yet from the boss. Usually, I get a text if people can't hear me or you.
Okay. Can you hear me okay though?
Yes.
Okay. So I really admire the way the James Beard Foundation delayed the announcements of the nominees. If they had tried to announce them mid-March, I think it would have been a really bad time because everyone was dealing with shutting down their restaurants and figuring out what they're going to do. So now having
Steve, sorry, you were right, man. I just got the text. I got to reset. Hold on, I'm going to vanish for like 5 seconds. It'll be awkward, but we'll make it happen. Oh, and we lost Steven now. It's always something, people. Always something. All right. Maybe if he hops back in the next couple seconds, we'll go. But we were kind of wrapping up anyway, as he was mentioning James Beard delaying those and then bringing out those. So I just wanted to throw that out there because there's definitely been some people that are really excited about it. And I was absolutely excited to see some of those names. And I've also seen some people saying awards right now. All right, here we go. We got you back.
Okay. Hey, that's better.
Yes, it's a reset, just like the industry is taking right now. So,
okay.
Yeah, you had kind of left off on they had delayed from mid-March when they usually have, and they came out.
The James Beard Awards, the nominees were meant to be announced in mid-March, and it was delayed. And they ended up announcing the nominees on the day that would have been the awards ceremony in Chicago, the first Monday in May. I think, it's tough for people that were maybe hopeful and didn't make the list. It might be even a bigger blow for them right now. But at the same time, the votes were already in. They already knew who they were. At some point, we just have to move on, right? And I think the ceremony has been moved to September. Right now, it's unclear if it will be actually a gathering or just a virtual event. Mm-hmm. That's enough time in advance to maybe still plan, and they'll probably have to make the call sometime soon. We were very, very honored to be nominated again for Outstanding Wine Program, which is basically my business partner Neil's domain. He is our general manager and our sommelier. Definitely has fantastic taste in wine and one of the best palates of any person I've ever met. Some other people that I was excited to see on the list, I'm looking at the list really quick. Fig in Charleston, those are great friends of mine, and they're
Jason Stanhope. Jason Stanhope and I worked together at Debbie Gold's restaurant, 40 Sardines in Kansas City when we were 23. We've talked about that multiple times on this show.
He's great.
Amazing restaurant. Yeah.
And then also I noticed we're up against Bacchanal, which is a great place in New Orleans, and many other fantastic restaurants in our category. I was excited to see Scott Blackwell and Ann Marshall from Highwire Distilling, and also let's see, my friend Caroline Glover in Denver, whom you know.
Yes.
The list, and also my buddy John Seibert from Tail Up Goat in DC. Those are a couple of highlights of friends that I was excited to see made the list. So it was really great to see them make it to the finalist list.
Yes.
It's John's first time and maybe Caroline's first time as well.
Yep.
And it's interesting too. So we've been nominated, I think, every year since 2012 for one category or another. So we've been to the awards many, many times. When we first started going, they were in New York City,
Yep.
and about halfway through, they switched to Chicago. So we've been to both many times. It is definitely an exciting event, and it's like the Oscars for the restaurant community. It really is. And you do the whole red carpet. Everyone's in black tie. You look around the room, you see so many people that you've admired for decades, and it's just an amazing experience.
I love it. I especially love seeing like Jason Stanhope dressed up. I was like, I did not know that you even knew how to tie a ties. And then he tells me he probably doesn't. Somebody had to do it for him. I think it's great, and I think the camaraderie that is that community, I think, is important. So I can appreciate that. And let's just give us a couple seconds on your partner and your wine program team. We always like to just talk about our people. So what does it mean to have such committed people? I'm sure several of them have been there for a long time and have put so much blood, sweat, and tears into that program.
Yeah.
To have them highlighted in this way.
It's really cool to see the rhythm of the front of the house team and how they study wine. I think they do a blind tasting every Friday. Neil is a really great educator, and he kind of breaks it down in the simplest of terms, and he can really start to learn people's strengths and weaknesses on the floor and help complement. So if someone doesn't feel comfortable selling, then they have a couple of people they can go to swoop in and help, make that informed sale to the guest. But there's a lot of excitement about wine around here, and it's wonderful to see them learn so much and get excited about the different things that they can really get into. And I like to go to the blind tastings when I have time. It's a lot of fun to just see everyone's enthusiasm, and everyone just writes down their picks and turns them in. So they don't put their name on or anything, and they read through and identify who did the best.
I love it because they're equally competitive as cooks are in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And having such a name in the industry as yourself and in that community, the James Beard Award on your front, to be able to have that level of commitment and importance on the front of house side keeps that ethos really strong. So I really appreciate that balance, because sometimes the chef-driven restaurant can definitely get out of balance where so much attention is in the back of house. So I really appreciate that balance. You mentioned Fig, one of the best, most balanced restaurants in the country. So I'm glad we got to highlight some of them. Stephen, you got work to do. You're at the restaurant right now. I appreciate you taking some time and keep up the leadership. We're going to need a lot more of it in your community and across the country.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, Jensen.
Absolutely. All right. Have a great day. Cheers. It's a great chef, real leader in his community. And as I mentioned, for me personally, that zero waste family meal, being able to cook with him, the leadership that he showed with putting together, having Massimo Bottaro be a part of that, totally crazy. And then a monsoon, holy shit, a monsoon. It was nuts, but grateful for those types of memories. And those types of memories are so across the industry, so ubiquitous, so important, and so timeless to us that I don't even remember the dishes that I made, but I remember that event. I remember the camaraderie. I remember the looks on everyone's face going, it's a monsoon. We're going to figure out a way to feed people. So grateful for that. For sure. Tomorrow's episode, noon Mountain, 2 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to have Nikki from Asian Mint on. She's down in Dallas, Texas, and she is a phenom for sure and really represents Asian cooking and culture and heritage, and specifically Bangkok, where she is originally from. So I'm excited to talk with her. Thanks for the snafu. Multiple people telling us that the sound was off. I really appreciate that. We'll keep this show going. Thanks, everyone.